Nobody saw it coming, not the fans, not the analysts, and definitely not the NFL front offices. But TMZ just dropped a story that sent shockwaves across the entire sports world. And at the center of it all is Shedeur Sanders. A rookie quarterback who hasn't even played a full season is now being called the top trending athlete of 2025. Ahead of names like LeBron James, Patrick Mahomes, and even global icons who dominate entertainment headlines. Think about that for a second. A first-year NFL quarterback is out-trending the legends of every major sport. But that's only the beginning of the story. Because this sudden explosion of fame didn't just elevate Shadur, it exposed something much bigger inside the Browns organization. Overnight, he went from rookie with potential to the face of a franchise desperate for direction. His personality, his swagger, his viral moments, they've turned him into something Cleveland hasn't had in years, a quarterback with undeniable star power. And TMZ's report didn't stop there. They compared Shadur to massive cultural figures, names you'd never expect to see next to an NFL rookie. The internet couldn't get enough of him, and the numbers proved it. But while the world was celebrating, a completely different conversation started inside football circles. If Shadur is trending at the top of the sports world, why wasn't Cleveland building around him from day one? And what happens now that the world is watching him more closely than ever? Because this bombshell didn't just crown Shadur, it put pressure on everyone around him. When TMZ called Shedeur Sanders box office, they weren't exaggerating. They were capturing a moment that the rest of the sports world is still trying to understand. Because Shadur isn't just trending, he's becoming a cultural force. You don't out-trend LeBron, Mahomes, and the biggest names in baseball by accident. Something deeper is happening. Something that goes beyond touchdowns, stats, and rookie highlights. It's the aura. Shadur has a presence that jumps off the screen. He flashes the wrist, he leans into the spotlight, he moves with the confidence of someone who already sees himself as a household name. And whether people love him or can't stand him, they can't stop watching him. That's what box office really means. Your name generates attention before you even step on the field. But the craziest part? TMZ didn't even compare him to other athletes. They compared him to cultural giants, the Pope and Bunny Blue. That alone tells you everything. They weren't ranking quarterbacks. They were ranking impact, influence, virality. And Shadur wasn't just on the list, he was leading the conversation. Reports claim this surge in popularity has corporate sponsors circling, social media stats exploding, young fans gravitating toward him in a way we usually only see with NBA superstars. And inside NFL circles, whispers are already spreading. The Browns may have accidentally stumbled into a quarterback who brings more market power than any player they've had in decades. But fame cuts both ways. Because when you become the face of viral culture, people aren't just watching for highlights. They're watching for slip-ups, controversies, and every little detail that can be turned into a headline. Shedur's personality, the wrist flex, the confidence, the swagger, it's magnetic, but it also makes him polarizing. That duality is what fuels the box office effect. You attract fans and critics with the same energy. And that rising tension leads to the real question hovering above everything. Is Shadur becoming a superstar because of his talent, or because he's become bigger than football itself? Either way, the Browns can't ignore it. Because Shedur's fame isn't slowing down, it's accelerating. And with every viral moment, the pressure on Cleveland to build around him grows stronger. But this hype storm didn't happen in a vacuum. It ties directly into a draft class that may go down as one of the most important in Browns history. Long before TMZ crowned Shedeur Sanders as the most talked-about athlete of 2025, the Cleveland Browns believed they were building something special. What nobody realized, at least not until now, is that Shadur wasn't just another draft pick. He was the vital piece in what analysts are now calling one of the most transformative draft classes in Browns history. Andrew Berry didn't just draft players. He drafted a blueprint. Quinshon Judkins, the explosive running back. Fannin, the tight end with superstar upside. Bond, the wideout loaded with speed. Swayze, the linebacker with instincts you can't teach. And the defensive tackle who instantly upgraded the trenches. Every pick was intentional. Every addition pointed toward a long-term plan. But as Emmanuel Acho put it, none of it mattered unless the quarterback position was solved. The Browns could hit on every skill player, every defender, every role guy, and still end up right back where they started if they didn't have a true franchise quarterback. That's why Shadur became the centerpiece. Reports claim Berry and the Browns front office viewed him as the potential franchise changer. Someone whose confidence, poise, and arm talent gave Cleveland a direction they hadn't had in years. But while Gabriel received the early reps, early training camp attention, and early opportunities, Shadur was forced to wait, and that's where the controversy started. Fans noticed the double standard, analysts called it a misstep, and inside the building, some even speculated that if Shadur had been given those same opportunities from day one, the Browns season might look completely different. What adds weight to this speculation is how quickly Shadur elevated the offense once he finally stepped into the role. Suddenly, the draft class made sense. Suddenly, Berry's master plan looked intentional, not accidental. And suddenly, it felt like Cleveland wasn't searching for its identity anymore. They were discovering it. Because the truth is simple. A team's future doesn't change unless the quarterback changes it. And for the first time in decades, Cleveland may have drafted someone capable of doing exactly that. But the rise of Shadur didn't just reshape the Browns internally. It triggered a wave of frustration among fans who realized he should have been the starter months earlier. For all the excitement surrounding Shedeur Sanders, there's a lingering frustration that refuses to leave the minds of Browns fans. It isn't about his talent. It isn't about his personality. It's about the simple, unavoidable truth that Cleveland may have mishandled the most crucial part of his development. And the more Shadur shines, the louder that frustration becomes. It started with the preseason reps. Dillon Gabriel got them. It continued into training camp. Gabriel got the spotlight. And as the early weeks of the season unfolded, Gabriel got the opportunities that fans now believe should have gone to Shadur from the start. That's where the tension comes from. Because while Gabriel is solid, he was never seen as the future. Everyone, from fans to analysts to former players, knew Shadur had the upside, the leadership, and the star presence that the Browns desperately needed. Yet he was treated like a secondary option until injuries forced a change. Reports claim that this decision quietly divided the fan base. Some defended the coaching staff, saying Shadur needed time. Others argued it was a massive misjudgment, one that may have cost Cleveland precious wins early in the season. Even analysts have said, if Shadur was given the same runway Gabriel got, the Browns could easily be leading the division right now. And honestly, they're not wrong. Because when Shadur finally got his chance, the offense didn't just improve, it looked different. Faster, more confident, more dangerous. The receivers played with more energy. The playbook opened up, and the Browns suddenly looked like a team that had been waiting for the right quarterback all along. That's why the frustration feels justified. It's not about hating the past. It's about recognizing what could have been. Even now, some insiders believe the Browns' slow decision-making put unnecessary pressure on Shadur. Instead of entering the season with momentum, he was forced to play catch-up in the middle of a volatile year. And while he's handled it with maturity, the situation raises a bigger question. If Shadur is this good now, what would he have looked like with a full offseason as QB1? But before fans could finish debating that question, TMZ's bombshell dropped, and suddenly the entire narrative around Shadur shifted overnight. When TMZ stepped into the conversation, The story around Shedeur Sanders instantly jumped from football news to national attention. TMZ doesn't spotlight just anyone. They cover cultural icons, global celebrities, and the rare athletes who cross into mainstream relevance. So when they named Shadur the top trending athlete of 2025, it wasn't just a compliment. It was a declaration that he has officially entered a different tier of fame. Think about who he outranked. LeBron James, global superstar. Patrick Mahomes, the face of the NFL. Baseball's biggest names from the Dodgers and Yankees, generational talents. Yet none of them trended more than a rookie quarterback who hasn't even completed his first season as a full-time starter. That's not normal. That's not accidental. That's cultural impact. TMZ even placed him in the same viral conversations as the Pope and Bunny Blue. He was the face of the franchise, whether the team was ready or not. His brand was becoming too big to ignore, too influential to sideline, too powerful to treat as anything other than the centerpiece. Reports claim some inside the building even believe this level of fame could shift how the front office structures the entire offense moving forward. Because you don't just build around a quarterback, you build around a star. And now Shadur isn't just on the rise, he's becoming the identity. But while Shedur's fame exploded, another story started brewing outside the NFL, one that leads back to the person who shaped him the most, Coach Prime. While the NFL world was buzzing over TMZ's bombshell about Shedeur Sanders, another headline quietly surfaced, one that might have a far bigger impact on Shedur's long-term development than most people realize. Coach Prime, the man who shaped Shedur's mentality, his confidence, and his approach to the game, just hired a brand new offensive coordinator. Go offense! On the surface, this move looks like a college football storyline, but anyone who understands how tightly Shedur's journey is woven into his father's legacy knows this change carries deeper meaning. Coach Prime's staff decisions have always been strategic. They're not about filling roles, they're about innovating, evolving, and staying ahead of everyone else. Marion's arrival signals that Prime is once again reinventing his system, pushing his program into another gear. And here's where the speculation begins. Reports claim this hire wasn't just about Colorado's offense. It was about shaping the next generation of quarterbacks who come through Prime's system. Using lessons learned from coaching Shadur, Marion's style emphasizes creativity, misdirection, hybrid formations, and turning quarterbacks into dynamic playmakers. If Shadur was still in college, he would have thrived in an offense built around unpredictability and aggression. But even though he's now in the NFL, the fingerprints of Coach Prime's philosophy still show in Shedur's game. The confidence, the poise, the ability to extend plays, the refusal to shrink under pressure. All traits sharpened under Prime's watch. That's why many fans believe this new hire could indirectly influence how the Browns evaluate and design their offense around Shadur. Prime has always pushed boundaries, and when NFL teams see what his new offense produces, they start taking notes. Front offices study trends, coaches borrow concepts, and sooner or later, those innovations trickle into the professional level. Especially when a rising quarterback like Shadur becomes the face of a franchise. Some insiders even speculate that Prime's evolving offensive approach could motivate Cleveland to modernize their own playbook, giving Shadur a system that resembles the style he excelled in. Whether that ends up happening or not, one thing is clear: Shedur's name is now attached to headlines on both the college and NFL levels, and that kind of dual influence is rare. But while Prime builds his next chapter, Shedur's immediate challenge remains on NFL turf, and everything now points to a showdown that feels bigger than just football. With all the hype, headlines, and viral moments swirling around Shedeur Sanders, the biggest question hovering over Cleveland isn't about fame, it's about readiness. Is Shadur truly prepared to carry a franchise on his shoulders? Or is the spotlight moving faster than his development? What makes this question so fascinating is that Shedeur's journey hasn't been typical of most rookie quarterbacks. He wasn't eased into the league with low expectations. He didn't spend a year quietly learning the playbook. Instead, he was thrown into a situation where every snap, every decision, every gesture was dissected by millions. And despite that pressure, he's shown the one thing that separates good quarterbacks from franchise quarterbacks: growth. You can see his progression week to week, the confidence in his footwork, the patience in the pocket, the willingness to make the right throw instead of the flashy one. He's maturing in real time. And it's happening under some of the brightest lights the NFL can shine. Analysts see it. Former players see it. Even the coaching staff, who once hesitated to unleash him, now admit he's developing faster than expected. Kevin Stefanski's recent comments, praising Shedeur's poise and readiness to let it rip, weren't just compliments. They were a signal that the Browns recognize something shifting inside their young quarterback. Something that can't be taught in classrooms or film sessions. Something that only emerges when a player starts believing he belongs. But readiness isn't just about physical talent. It's about leadership. And Shedeur brings something intangible, something few young quarterbacks have. His team responds to him. His presence elevates others. Even veterans feel the energy shift when he takes the field. That's the mark of a true franchise quarterback, not just production, but influence. Still, skepticism lingers. Critics argue he hasn't been tested enough. Others believe his confidence borders on arrogance. And some think the Browns are moving too fast, risking overwhelming him before he's fully prepared. But here's the truth that no analyst can deny. Every great quarterback reaches a moment where the organization must stop evaluating and start believing. For Cleveland, that moment is arriving quickly because the next game, the one everyone is watching, won't just measure Shedeur's skills. It will measure his readiness to lead. And that brings us to the showdown that could define the narrative for the rest of the year. Every NFL season has a matchup that becomes bigger than the standings, bigger than the stats, and bigger than the teams on the field. For this year, that moment belongs to Shedeur Sanders versus Cam Ward, a duel that's already being framed as one of the defining quarterback battles of their draft class. Both players are talented. Both players are confident. Both players carry the weight of fan expectations. But only one of them was labeled the guy before ever taking a snap in the league. And that's where the tension begins. Cam Ward has been grinding through the league with something to prove. He wasn't the flashy headline stealer. He wasn't the viral sensation. He wasn't the quarterback people debated endlessly on social media. He was simply the competitor, steady, tough, determined to carve out his own place in the NFL. For Ward, this matchup is a chance to show the world he should have been the #1 pick. For Shedeur, it's a chance to show the world why that pick should have been him. It's not just a game. It's a comparison in real time. Every throw Shedeur makes will be measured against Ward. Every decision Ward makes will be contrasted with Shedeur. Analysts will break down mechanics. Fans will argue about leadership. Scouts will quietly take notes for the future. And the narrative that comes out of this game, the one that survives beyond the highlight reels, is going to shape how both quarterbacks are perceived for years. But the stakes are even higher for Shedeur. He's not just fighting for respect. He's fighting to validate the hype that's already wrapped itself around his name. TMZ calling him the top trending athlete of 2025 put a spotlight on him that most rookies never face. Now, with the world watching, he has to prove that his influence isn't just cultural, it's competitive. And Ward, he's hungry, he's talented. He knows this is his best opportunity to flip the script and steal the momentum. Fans are calling it a rivalry already. Analysts are calling it a measuring stick. But for Shedeur, this game is something more personal. It's the moment where talent meets expectation, where hype meets reality, and where potential must turn into performance. Because no matter who wins the game, the quarterback who walks away with the stronger performance will control the story moving forward. But before we close this chapter, we need to look at the bigger picture, the Browns' future, and how everything happening right now could change the trajectory of the entire franchise. As the dust settles around the TMZ headlines, the coaching shifts, and the growing hype around this week's matchup, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. The Cleveland Browns are standing at a crossroads, and the next decision they make may define the next decade of their franchise. For years, the Browns have cycled through quarterbacks, names that came in with hope and left with disappointment. They've rebuilt rosters, cycled coaches, and restructured entire systems in search of stability. But the arrival of Shedeur Sanders presents something the Browns haven't had in a very long time. A genuine foundation, not a maybe, not a placeholder. A potential franchise quarterback with the talent, charisma, and presence to reshape a team's identity. But raw potential means nothing if the organization doesn't fully commit. If the Browns decide Shadur is their guy, truly their guy, everything changes. They build the offensive line around him. They add the receivers that elevate him. They tailor the scheme to his strengths. And for once, Cleveland stops reacting to problems and starts constructing a future. But commitment requires courage. It requires letting go of hesitation. It requires trusting that the quarterback you drafted can carry the weight that comes with the job. And Shadur has already shown he's ready for that weight. With each game, his command grows, his confidence sharpens, his leadership solidifies. He's not just learning the NFL, he's adapting to it, accelerating through it, and forcing the league to adjust to him. That's what franchise quarterbacks do. They don't fit into a system, they become the system. The Shadur versus Cam Ward matchup might be the headline this week, but the real story is unfolding behind the scenes. It's the meetings inside Berea, the decisions being debated in the front office, the question every coach is being forced to ask. Is this the moment we finally build around a quarterback instead of searching for the next one? Because if the Browns choose to go all in, they could break the cycle that has haunted this franchise for decades. They could finally step out of survival mode and into a future built on stability, confidence, and star power. But if they hesitate, if they repeat old patterns, if they let this moment slip away, they may never get another chance like this. Shedeur Sanders has opened the door. Now it's up to the Browns to walk through it.